I'm currently in Renmore Common, which is in the Surrey Hills, just outside the south of London. Hillside. It's part of National Trust, and every time when I come here, I've been here only a couple of times, this forest always seems to amaze me. It's such a beautiful, profound place. It seems to be like hundreds of years old. It's something mystical. But anyway, in this video I wanted to reflect on this whole social isolation thing, social distancing thing. Are we heading towards another crisis, a mental health crisis? So I wanted to reflect on this and share my own points of view on this, especially when I take a bit of my own personal experiences from the last 2 to 3 months, because I think humanity is right now going deeply through his own shadow sides, and sometimes that is required to clear things up, to become more aware of ourselves, like if this is really who we want to be, or do we want to become someone that is closer to what feels right for you, that feels more closer to your own true authentic self. So really that's what we are talking about most of the time on this channel, reflection time, where we go out in nature, give ourselves a little bit of time to reflect. So I'm just going to move on a little bit, because I know there are some more beautiful mystical places around here, and give a little bit of a thought of where I have been, and perhaps that could also help you to give you some insights of where you're currently at and where you might be going and where we might be going together. No connection. You're not going to find any Wi-Fi in the forest, but I'm sure you're going to find a better connection. Anyway, let's first talk about this whole social isolation challenge we are facing, all of us together. In my first week, well, I was being forced to sit at home, as most of us, being a lockdown, although the lockdown in the UK wasn't really that intense compared to other countries. If I look to my own country, the Netherlands, if police will see you that you are within the 1.5 meter distance within, they give you 390 euros of a fine. If they spot a self-employed professional working while they are not allowed to work, they give the self-employed professional a 4,000 euro fine. And now it has come so far that not only they give you the fine, but also a criminal record. So it's not just these restrictions we're facing, it also seems like they want to turn these restrictions into new law that can go on forever and ever. And again, I'm not worried about this whole virus thing, to be fair. It is just what comes after this that we are currently already facing. More restrictions, more isolation. I mean, I came to London because of my partner. I've got a beautiful partner and we're all very happy together. But I think many people can desire that. But now I have, let's say, achieved that or accomplished that. There are always more boxes to tick off. And while you are with someone, you don't really feel the urge to get out and to socialize so much with others. You don't feel the urge to go out and hang in bars and do all these kind of social activities, right? Because why would you? I mean, you're settled. And after your 30s, I also feel like you're settling down more. You also don't really go out and meet your bar buddies, right? Your buddies to go out and drink and have fun and do all these kind of things, or even other things, right? And we have become very independent. I mean, personally, in my early life, I learned that in this world you gotta be independent. You cannot really rely so much on other people, because other people might let you down. They might disappoint you. So that's why I withdraw more into myself. which is a good quality to have, but at the other side, it's in our nature to socialize, to connect, to have relationships. And over the last years, that is kind of, for me personally, that kind of really started to, be more on the background. And while I was, being socially isolated, I was faced with enormous amount of feelings of indeed isolation, disconnect, loneliness, to a point where I felt like, what's even the point? What's even the point of continuing to create these videos? I might get views on the internet. I can get views 1,000, 2,000 within 24 hours, but just throwing some money at YouTube or whatever. But these numbers were not doing it anymore for me. While others might be obsessed about this whole social recognition. And then even I wonder, why all this effort? And because I was starting to lose touch with that creativity, I started to feel even more apathetic. Depressed might be a big word, but I had definitely feelings like, what's even the point? And before you know it, you are putting yourself on a slippery slope, on a downward spiral, and nothing really seems to excite you, stimulate you anymore. And then what we tend to do is to seek for artificial stimulation, which is actually quite easily to get nowadays, which is another big thing for us millennials, not only millennials, but for entire generations. We turn to artificial stimulation, entertainment, movies, Netflix, video games, even for a lot of guys, even women, pornography. Let's be honest, let's face it. Especially when this whole social isolation occurred, where people cannot really see anyone anymore, they cannot go out for dating anymore. What do a lot of guys do? In my case, it has been video games. Hours and hours and hours and hours. And when you do it only an hour or so a day, it's totally fine. No big deal. If you watch a movie once a week, what's the deal? No point. Enjoy your sense of entertainment. But every day, for hours and hours and hours, non-stop, that becomes very draining. Mentally draining. It becomes harmful for your mental health. So it's a very dangerous thing, and I think right now we are at this edge of this disconnect, where we constantly have to look like, where are the people? I need to avoid people. I need to avoid, because who knows, right? That's kind of really what everybody's telling each other, what the media is telling us to each other. We have to wear these masks all the time. I think it's a bunch of bollocks, a bunch of BS. Because if the virus was really out there to get me, it would already have got me. Maybe so as you. And who knows what happened with the numbers? Who says they are not manipulated? But that's another topic. I spoke about it a few weeks ago about this whole coronavirus thing. But it was also because I was watching a couple of documentaries online that really scratched my head, and I said to myself, do I really want to dive deeper into this? Otherwise, I'm going to even feel more depressed. But yeah, there are definitely things going on that if you dive too deep into this, it makes you question everything. And I think it's important not to go too far into this rabbit hole either. But anyway, there we are at. We live in a different reality of a lot of isolation, disconnect, mistrust each other, and from this whole pandemic we moved into another crisis, racism, which is a topic I don't want to dive into this right now, but it seems this year has been already packed with a lot of crises. But this video was again about mental health, because of course my channel is about mindfulness, mental health, self-reflection, personal development, spirituality. So that's why I prefer to stick to this one topic. And it's more like, when you're sitting at home, I'm not so good at sitting at home. In my previous video about the millennial crisis, I spoke about, lots of millennials would love to work from home, and well, you were used to working in a big corporation and having this commute all day long. After some time working from home, yeah, it can harm your productivity or creativity. In my case, because I'm not only highly sensitive, I'm also the high sensation seeker part. I constantly need a new kind of environment. I need to be on the go. I need to travel. And sitting at home, it reduces my impulses of stimulation, and I cannot get stimulated. And again, that's why we tend to seek for artificial stimulation. Now, the dopamine detox, of course, can be a whole topic of another video, several videos. A lot of YouTubers have already spoken about this, to do a dopamine detox. Yeah, it's kind of like pretty common these days that we get almost like addicted to artificial stimulations and dopamine impulses of entertainment, social media, you name it. It can become quite harmful for our mental health. So what is it that you do to maintain your sanity, even when you're not allowed too much to hang out with others? How do you seek indeed connection within yourself first? Because we can still be surrounded with a lot of people, but we can still feel lonely. Anyway, let's talk about it. I need to seek for a better place with some better lighting, because I think you already have a lot of noise in this footage. So yeah, let's crack on. Let's move on. I think there's still some very beautiful places ahead. As we have been walking through perhaps a little bit of a more darker period, a darker forest I was walking into, it becomes time to turn on the brightness, step into our light. And what I recognized is that when I was forced to stay at home, is that yes, I started to feel isolated, and it kind of had to do with the feeling that I wasn't seen, I wasn't being recognized, or I feel invisible no matter what I try to do. Even when I post stuff online and people interact, which is all great, but still, and even I share a beautiful relationship, and I have a great family, but still I can often feel like I'm invisible. That what I share, sometimes it feels like I'm speaking into an abyss. That what I do, my energy goes down the drain. And I think that's an important thing to recognize. Is really that kind of what lies in our human collective as well, in the human conditioning. It's this feeling of isolation. And maybe it had to do indeed that, we were descended here on this earth plane, this lower density earth plane in this physical form. And indeed that our soul misses a connection with a larger whole, a larger collective. It's missing that connection with something that is much greater than ourselves. Source, maybe. So, even when you are surrounded with a lot of people, and most of us, we were used to that, and we were used to always receive something from our external world, whether it be recognition, rewards, validation. We were always being told to get out there in the external world. And this whole social distancing, social isolation thing, it's forced us to be with ourselves, to be on our own. And that's kind of like a daunting thing, to be with ourselves. Because then we have to look at a place where we have never looked before. And for most of us, including myself, that sometimes can be terrifying. And what I experience is that when I create, let's say, flow through creative work, tuning into my own inspiration, my own flow and everything like that, when I'm out in nature, when I'm doing like outdoor activities, sports, meditation, self-reflection work, listening to music, all these things can make us feel very present in this very moment. Maybe you tune into a higher state of being, a higher state of consciousness, a higher state of brain frequency. And even I experienced it in my past when I was out there on the lake sailing on my catamaran. I felt in the zone. Outdoor sports, extreme sports. But the most painful, I'm saying it's painful, but when you get out of that zone, the world can feel very mundane, boring, isolated, cold. Well, just to name a few keywords. And then sometimes we wonder, like, okay, so I create flow for myself, which is awesome. I create this connection with something that is much bigger than myself. But when I get out of that, then the rattling of the mind continues, it moves on. The overthinking, the doubting, the dabbling, the stress, the anxieties, the worries, boredom. And then you ask yourself, so why going through all of this anyway in the first place? And I think that's really the message that I want to give to you, is that we must find a way to return to a flow state, a zone state, where we create connection with ourselves. Connection with our own inner being, connection with something that is bigger than ourselves. Because that does not always rely on other people. Yes, we can share it. We can engage with others. And yes, it can also help to amplify this zone state. But as many creative, intuitive, highly sensitive, sensation seekers, creative individuals, artists, most of that flow state can be experienced in solitude. Well, I'm out here in nature, in beautiful forest, woodlands. I do not feel this isolation. I feel quite the opposite. It's when I get back to my little room that I often can experience that feeling of isolation. So to overcome this whole mental health issue thing, and well, the world is still a little bit standing on its head, not really quite sure what direction to go into, and restrictions turns into laws, and you know, we feel more restricted of our freedom, and well, you know exactly what I mean. It becomes more essential to find a space for ourselves where we can return to ourselves. Yes, we have been living for years, decades, centuries in this overly dominated masculine energy behavior of always getting out there, materialize and getting things done, and now it seems to catch up with the feminine, intuitive, sensitive, introspection kind of way of seeing the world, looking within our own world, realizing that the only corner of the universe we can change is our own universe, our own corner. So let me know your thoughts. What is it for you that can get you into that flow state? Currently I'm still following this program from Stephen Kotler, I believe it was, on the Mind Valley Academy. I will leave a link below. I'm still in the middle of it, and to be quite honest with you, I also lost a little bit of my own discipline, consistency, persistence of staying connected with my own personal development and things like that. Because when you are on the slippery slope downwards and spiral, and we ask yourself, what's the whole point of doing anything at all? Eventually what's very dangerous and which is causing these mental health challenges is that when we don't discipline ourselves, we're doing that what makes us feel more present, happier, satisfied within ourselves. And you know, when the whole world is becoming more concerned with their own issues and challenges, it's this feeling of isolation can cause indeed this apathetic behavior and thinking, like, you know, the whole point of what's the bother. But learning to discipline yourself with a whole lot of things, let it be daily walks in the park, relaxing your mind, self-reflection, personal development work, meditation, creative work, and find some sort of a consistency with something. Well, you actually can turn into artificial stimulations that get you a lot more satisfaction, maybe in an artificial way in this very moment, but long term is hurting you. So it's that thing really that we need to find a way to discipline ourselves. And I'm saying this also more to myself. Like in the beginning, I wasn't really very motivated to keep on going with my videos, but when I do so, yes, I sometimes have these moments of complete boredom, and where I have these nagging voices in my head, like, you know, what are you getting out of this? It's never enough, no matter how well you try, it's never enough. It is really to create this discipline that can lead to greater feelings of satisfaction and fulfillment, and that can lead to more freedom within your soul. We have to free our soul, and then the external world is going to reflect that. When you feel isolated from something, you also create isolation and separation from that what you think you want. Money, relationships, whatever. So we must discipline ourselves to free our soul by keep on going.